The first time I realized people had already decided who I was standing in line at a coffee shop, still wearing my work badge, grease on my hands, boots scuffed from a 12-hour shift. A guy in a pressed suit stepped in front of me like I wasn't even there. Didn't apologize, didn't look back, just assumed I wouldn't say anything. And you know what? I didn't. Not then, but that moment stayed with me. Because it wasn't about coffee, it was about being invisible. I grew up learning how to keep my head down. Wrong side of town, single mom. Bills that never waited. I started working early, fixing things, hauling things, doing the kind of jobs people look at and think they've got you all figured out. I didn't talk much. I listened. I watched how people treated me when they thought I had nothing to offer. And yeah, I let it slide more times than I should have. Because survival teaches you that sometimes silence feels safer than pride. Fast forward a few years and I'm working maintenance at a mid-sized corporate building downtown. Not glamorous, but it paid the rent. Gave me health insurance. I showed up early, left late, fixed problems nobody else wanted to deal with. Most people didn't know my name. They called me Hey or Maintenance like that was enough. Except for one guy. Daniel, Senior Operations Manager. Expensive suits, loud laugh, the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. From day one, Daniel had a talent for making me feel small. He'd snap his fingers to get my attention. Talk slow, like I couldn't keep up. Once, when an elevator went down, he stood there with his arms crossed and said, "So, this is what you do all day?" I smiled and said, "Part of it." He laughed like he'd won something. You know the type. The thing is, Daniel loved an audience. Meetings, hallways, break rooms. Anywhere he could remind people who was important and who wasn't. And I became an easy target. Not because I messed up. I didn't. But because I didn't fight back. Yet. The turning point came on a Monday morning. The worst kind. Power outage on 3 floors. Phones ringing. People panicking like the world was ending. I was already running diagnostics when Daniel stormed in, red-faced, pointing fingers. "This is unacceptable." He barked loud enough for half the floor to hear. "Do you have any idea how much money we're losing every minute?" I told him calmly. The backup generator failed. "I'm rerouting power now. Give me 10 minutes." He scoffed. 10 minutes. "That's your best." Then he leaned in, lowered his voice just enough to sting. "This is why people like you stay where you are." People like you. Yeah, that landed. Something shifted right there. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. I fixed the issue in 7 minutes. Power came back. Applause from the team. Daniel took credit without missing a beat. "Good thing I pushed," he said, grinning. And everyone laughed awkwardly because that's what people do when power speaks. That night I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car, hands on the wheel, replaying every moment I'd swallowed my voice. Every time I let someone define me because it was easier than correcting them. And I realized something uncomfortable. As long as I stayed quiet, I was helping them underestimate me. So I stopped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just deliberately. I started documenting everything. Not in a petty way, in a professional way. Emails, work orders, timelines, decisions I made that saved time, money, resources. I volunteered for cross-department projects, learned systems most people avoided, took online courses at night, certifications, compliance rules, stuff Daniel barely skimmed because he thought it was beneath him. And slowly people started noticing. Not him, others. One afternoon there was a compliance audit. Big deal. The kind that makes executives sweat. Daniel was supposed to lead it. He didn't prepare. At all. When the auditors asked detailed questions about infrastructure, he froze, looked around the room, and then, like a reflex, he pointed at me. He handles that stuff. Every eye turned my way. I stood up, heart pounding, and for the first time I didn't minimize myself. I explained everything. Clearly. Confidently. Answered questions Daniel didn't even understand. The auditors nodded, took notes. One of them smiled and said, "You really know this place." Daniel didn't say a word. After the meeting, he pulled me aside, tried to laugh it off. "You should have told me you knew all that." I looked at him and said, "You never asked." Just like that. No heat, no apology. He walked away stiff. A week later, there was an opening. Facilities Operations Supervisor. Promotion. Salary bump. Office. Daniel assumed it would go to someone he recommended. He even joked about it in the break room, said, "Guess I'll finally have someone competent reporting to me." Didn't even look at me when he said it. The interview panel was brutal. Questions about leadership crisis management, accountability. I told the truth. About my background. About being underestimated. About knowing how the building really worked because I'd been in every crawlspace and boiler room. I didn't pretend to be polished. I was prepared. 2 days later, HR called me in. I got the job. When they announced it, the room went quiet. Daniel's smile didn't quite land. He shook my hand a second too late. "Congrats," he said, his voice tight. For the first time, he had to look up at me in the org chart. The real confrontation came later. He walked into my new office unannounced. Closed the door. Said, "You know, this doesn't change who's really in charge." I leaned back, met his eyes, and said, "It changes how you speak to me." He opened his mouth, closed it, nodded once, left. Here's the thing. Winning didn't feel like fireworks. It felt quiet, solid, like standing on ground that doesn't move when someone tries to push you. I didn't ruin him. I didn't need to. He did that himself slowly by underestimating the wrong person. People started coming to me, asking questions, asking for help. Not because of my title, because I listened. Because I remembered what it felt like to be dismissed. And I made damn sure I didn't repeat that cycle. Sometimes I think about that guy in the coffee shop, the way he stepped in front of me without a thought. Maybe he still does that. Maybe he doesn't. But I know this. Being underestimated can break you. Or it can free you, because once people stop watching you closely, you're allowed to grow without interference. If you've ever been talked down to overlook treated like you didn't matter, not because of your work, but because of how you look, where you came from, or what people assume you're worth, I want you to sit with this question. Do you want to prove them wrong, or do you want to outgrow them so completely their opinion becomes irrelevant? Because those are two very different victories. So tell me what you think. Was I right to stay quiet until the moment mattered, or should I have pushed back sooner? Where do you draw the line between patience and self-respect? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And chances are your story might sound a lot like someone else's who needs to hear it.